Okay, well here we have the reveal solution for the back to school outfit picker zebra challenge. Now, the trick here is to looking past the surface to see what the structures are. But the way this works is you've got a number of controls, and as you make a selection in any category, it changes that item. So here the glasses are flipping. Go down to the blouse. I can change the color of the blouse, change the color of the skirt, and so forth. So I have groups of controls that all are related, and in each of those it picks an item to display. So to illustrate this, I'm going to reduce this to a much simpler problem. And you'll find out there's a very small number of secrets to this solution. You just have to execute that a number of times. Okay, so here I've created a different file that's just much simpler to show the components. First, I want to draw your attention to these three radio buttons. These are just regular radio buttons using the radio button tool. I just drew them and I labeled them each 1, 2, and 3. Now, as you click on these, you can see that if I click on it, it gets selected. If I click again, it gets away. But if I click on 2, that gets selected. And you'll see this is now a violation of really the way radio buttons are supposed to work. Because the whole idea of a radio button interface is that if I pick 1, then that should deselect whatever was previously selected. So, now you can imagine there'd be a way to do this if you looked at the outs. So when I would click on this, I could automatically set it to checked and set any of the other radio buttons to unchecked, or checked equals false. That'd be easy enough to do when you just have 3 of these, but you can imagine it'd become a pain when you have to do that on every radio button when you have a lot of them. Now luckily for us, there's a very cool feature that will make this work for us automatically, and it's called button sets. And the way you do this is I'm going to shift click to select all the buttons that I want in this one family, go to arrange, pick make button set, and you see that temporarily you get red boxes showing them, and when you go over any one of them, it reminds you that those are in a button set together. Now, what that did for us now is, notice that if I change my selection, when I click on it, it actually turns the other ones off. And so it made this family of buttons work just like radio buttons should. Now, it also gave meaning to a property that's going to be very handy. If we look at the values on any one of these buttons, you'll notice that there's 2 values for the button. One is for this button and the value for the button set. Right now they're set by default, B1 is the first button in the set, B2 is the second, and B3 is the third. And so this one has value B1. Notice that the value of the button set is B3, which means the third button is the one that's picked. Now you can set these values to have meaning whatever you would like. And I want them to just be button number 1. And on button 2, I'm going to set its value for that button to be 2. And for 3, I'm going to set its value to be 3. Now you'll notice as I click on these, you notice that the value of the button set is now 1, because number 1 is the one selected. If I go to pick 3, the value of the button set is 3. So that one property on whatever button you look at is going to tell you which value you know based on which button's been set. Okay, so far so good. Now the tricky part is I want to take that information to show something. Well, here I've got an arena set up that I've just given it 3 different distinct values. So on the first page there's a number 1 displayed. On the second page is a number 2. Third page is a number 3. Now that could be anything, but I use the numbers just so it's clear where we are. Now what I want to do is say whatever button is selected here, I want to show that page of the arena. So I can just wire from value button set over to my arena, and I want that to be set to the current page. So now when I run this, click 2, notice that the arena switches to 2. I click 3, that switches to 3, 1. So I have this direct connection between the value of the button set and what page the arena is going on. So hopefully you now see how this is going to turn into our solution. First off, we want to change the way these radio buttons work. Look, they're going to work the same. We want to make them look different, and you do that by going to the properties of the button, and down here the graphic button, and you can take, let's say we're going to make this the blouse. So I'm going to take blouse pink. It's one of my colored chips. Move it here to up, release. Notice that my button change look like a pink square, and then I have button pink X, which is what it should look like when it's selected. I'll put that in the up category. Notice that my graphic is a rectangle, and yet the button is showing as a square, and that's because if we look at geometry, there's a keep aspect ratio true, which means it was originally a perfect circle, and so now it's going to maintain that ratio. If you wanted to take the ratio of the loaded graphics, you change that to false. Notice now the buttons have changed to a rectangle. I want to do the same thing for button 2. I want to change its, I can change its geometry to be keep aspect ratio false. And now I'm going to add in the graphic button field the chip for the black, or the navy blouse. So we'll put navy in as the up state, and navy X as the checked state. And then finally here's a rose blouse. We'll put that into number 3. Wrong thing. Graphic button, put rose in up, and rose X in checked. We need to set that to aspect ratio false. Also, we don't need these numbers anymore. We're just going to delete the label. Notice though that the values of the buttons still remain the same and the button state is intact. We could line these up. Now I want to put the actual blouse pictures in. So we'll grab the navy blouse. Now that should be in actually numbered page 2 because that's the second button. So I'm going to go back to page 2 and place the number 2 with the black blouse. Then the pink blouse goes into number 1. Try to line these up approximately. So they're the same place in the arena. And then on the third page is our rose-colored blouse. And now, when I run it, depending on which button I pick, it shows that blouse, which is exactly the behavior we need in our finished product. So that's exactly what you do. You just repeat it for all the different objects. You create a different arena for each of the objects, and what you need to do is back on the editing, make sure that you don't have a border around your arena. So I'm going to take the line weight down to 0. And the fill opacity of your arena is going to be 0. So that would allow all these things to stack up on top of each other. So as we're looking back at the finished product, you'll see that we just have a bunch of button sets. Here's one that just has 4 radio buttons for glasses that are loaded appropriately. Here's another button set, which are the 4 buttons for the purse colors. And here are the 3 buttons that make another button set for the scarf. Now for each of these, you'll notice that the button sets for glasses are set to control this arena called glasses, linking to the page current. And if we look at that, you'll see that there are 4 pages, and each page of the arena has a different pair of glasses in it. And those are in the order that correspond to the color chips. So you can see that we just have a whole bunch of arenas, and they're stacked on top of each other. Here's the scarf arena, and it's right above the cardigan arena. So it's really just a matter of doing that structure, repeating it, loading all the graphics, and setting all the button states. So a lot of repetitive work, but I think it's worth going through the exercise of doing this so you get in the habit of repeating the process, working with multiple images, and it really is a very, very powerful tool to use button sets with arenas or in any way to indicate one single selection. So I hope you had fun doing this one. I did. And we'll have another challenge for you coming up in a few days. Okay, thanks.